From the National Weather Service in Raleigh, here's your tropical storm Isaias briefing here, 5 p.m. Sunday, August the 2nd. And the main changes that we're going to discuss in this briefing update are the expanded flash flood watch, and we got some river flooding information because now we have forecasts from the River Forecast Center that do indicate river flooding on some of the main stem rivers across central North Carolina. Latest briefing, or latest watches and warnings and advisories. Flash flood watch has been expanded to include all of central North Carolina. That's the watch shown on the left. On the right are our current hurricane and tropical storm watches and warnings. Now, those are in the process of being updated right now. Some of my colleagues who are just a few feet behind me as well are in the process of tweaking those. So that's why I haven't yet sent out or emailed the slides, because I'm going to include that new updated graphic before I email it. But a little preview to that is we are going to upgrade the eastern portions of our basically I-95 eastward, where you see the tropical storm watch. Those will be turned into warnings, and we're still going to leave the counties west of I-95 a watch. So that's actually being drawn up and prepared as we speak, or as I speak here. So situation overview, really no changes. Wind, flooding, rain, and tornadoes are the main threats. And Monday night into Tuesday is the time when we expect the worst of the weather. All right, so you'll notice these bar graphs have been tweaked a little bit. Rainfall and flash flooding has been, elevated, increasing threat. But river flooding, I've increased that since 9:30 this morning, and I'll touch on that here shortly. The other thing with the 5 p.m., and you'll notice, look at the time down there at the bottom. So this is fresh, right, hot off the presses, so to speak. The latest track from the Hurricane Center. And the one thing that the first thing that caught my eye was they nudged it a little bit back to the east again. So that's a slight nudge to the right. So if you're in the triad, that's good news for you. If you're in the triangle, say in the western half of the triangle, that's good news for you. Although I think from I-95 East, you're still going to see some pretty robust impacts to Monday night, tomorrow night into Tuesday morning. Okay, so the western portions of central North Carolina, assuming this track holds and it doesn't shift back to the west, that's good news for folks in the western portion of central North Carolina, sort of the western Piedmont. All right, so of course this graphic just kind of highlights and just reiterates what I just mentioned. Areas along and east of I-95 will see the highest wind gusts. I will point out too, here's these tropical storm force wind probabilities, and look how that's been nudged a little bit east. So the highest chances for tropical storm force winds have been nudged back to the east a bit with this fresh 5 p.m. update. Still, though, the highest winds are expected along and east of I-95. That does not take the I-95 counties out of the woods, so to speak. All right, and the most likely time of arrival for tropical storm force winds will be Monday night, and that's what this graphic here conveys. So breaking it down, sort of, every couple hours, I showed a variant of this graphic at 9:30, so I created another one, but maybe a little bit different look to it. But basically, these are forecast wind gusts. These are wind gusts, not sustained, because when most tropical systems, it's the gusts that give you the highest winds, and obviously in the greatest damage potential. The gusts give you the greatest damage potential. So I wanted to highlight the forecast wind gusts, and you can see the time, and I apologize, it's small font, but you'll see the time is listed right here in each of these graphics. So in the upper left, you have 8 p.m. Monday. In the upper right, you have 11 p.m. Monday, and so on. So basically, you could see that we're in good shape all day tomorrow wind-wise. So if you're doing last-minute preparations, like bringing in your patio furniture into the garage, like I'll be doing, or securing any loose outdoor objects, anytime tomorrow, all day tomorrow is good to do that. Winds really don't start picking up from south to north until the nighttime hours, particularly the overnight hours, and you'll see that conveyed in the bottom. And then by pre-dawn, 5 a.m., you could see 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts will have spread all the way almost to the Virginia border almost. But certainly we're seeing gusts upwards of 40 plus miles per hour all the way back toward the US 1 corridor. So basically, the one thing I want to highlight, even though that track is shifted, we still have some pretty robust winds basically along and east of US 1. Okay, so we've been highlighting I-95 in terms of the worst in points east, but I don't want the folks west of I-95 to think they're off the hook. Folks all the way back to the US 1 corridor, you can have some wind damage. And I certainly don't want to completely rule out places like Roxborough, Greensboro, Lexington, even Troy. I mean, you could still have especially given the wet ground and rain that's coming, you could still have a gust to 25 that might blow a dead tree over that's already leaning because of the heavy wet ground. Okay, so you're not out of the all of central North Carolina needs to obviously pay close attention, but the worst of it is basically from the I-95 corridor eastward with the potential for a fair amount of downed trees all the way back to the US 1 corridor. Okay, look at 8 a.m. Tuesday. We're still, even after the sun rises on Tuesday, we're still dealing with nearly 50 mile per hour wind gusts from basically Johnston County east and northward. There could be some gusts into the low 60s even, places like Goldsboro, maybe up toward Rocky Mount. Finally, by about midday Tuesday, around the noon hour, we pretty much shut off the wind across central North Carolina. It's still a little breezy though, so cleanup could be a little breezy. But basically, during the afternoon, things rapidly improve. All right, so that's what we got for timing. The rain will have similar timing as well. So in terms of the worst of the rain, this map shows if you take that whole time period and pull out the highest wind gusts, this is what we've got. So all the way back to the US 1 corridor, you could see wind gusts of 30 to 40 miles per hour, some down trees and power lines. But from I-95 eastward is where we think the worst of it's going to be. Since I mentioned rain, I thought I'd shift to that pretty quickly here. And really no change since what we talked about earlier. We're still expecting 2 to 4 inches across all of central North Carolina with a swath of 3 to 5 inches of rain. A few spots could see even a bit higher than that. I wouldn't be surprised if there was 1 or 2 spots that got 6 inches of rain, but that won't be the rule. It'll be more like 3, 4, 5 inches in that swath, 40 miles either side of I-95. Okay, so that area will have as you can imagine, with the highest amount of rain, this area here will have the greatest risk for flash flooding as well, or in the worst of that if it does occur. All right, so in terms of inland flooding impacts, again, the heaviest rain is expected to fall overnight, Monday night into Tuesday morning. Heavier rain will lead to flash flooding in low spots, poor drainage areas, and streams and creeks. Okay, so that's the main takeaway there. At this point now, I'm going to turn it over to Barrett Smith, our hydrologist, who's going to touch on some of the river impacts. So, Barrett, I'll hand you the microphone, and you just tell me when you want me to advance the slides, and we'll do this safely.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. As Nick mentioned, we've been watching the rainfall totals, and while they were earlier on, more in the 2 to 4, maybe locally higher inch totals, as we started to see more 4-inch basin average rainfall totals, especially between US 1 and I-95, we've started to notice that there's a little bit better chance for some river flooding, particularly along the Neuse and the Tar rivers. And a little context, we had a really wet spring. We had several big flood events, and one more recently, in the Tar River Basin in Rocky Mount. And while July was just a little bit drier, and we actually started to see some drought creeping in across the northern portions of North Carolina, our stream flows and our soil moisture have remained pretty much near or above normal for mid to late summer. So I think that's really setting the stage here for the water to not be able to go anywhere. I've had 6 inches of rainfall at my house in the last couple weeks, and I can't get it to dry out. So I think we're going to see some river flooding. It's just how much we're going to see. So Nick is showing here the Neuse River at Clayton, and with that about 4 inches, the River Forecast Center is now forecasting that to go into moderate. And I'm gonna stress here that this and the following one at Smithfield are not necessarily worst case scenarios. There's some indications that we could see these reach major flood levels, or at least go a little bit into major flood stage. And this would all occur by Wednesday. Nick, if you want to move on to Smithfield. And you'll see that Smithfield is forecast to go right near major flood stage again. We have some of our ensembles that we've been looking at take the river into major flood. So we think there's high confidence that we'll hit minor. There's good confidence that we'll hit moderate, and lower but still possible chances that we'll hit major flood stage. And finally at Goldsboro, this water will take some time to route down to Goldsboro, but by the end of the week, it looks like we could see at least minor flooding in Goldsboro. There's not any strong indications that we'll get into moderate or major at Goldsboro, but again, by the end of the week, this water should work its way down and be pushing minor flood stage. And I think a similar indication in Tarboro, with with taking longer for the rainfall to get to Tarboro. So again, we're talking Friday at least before we would hit minor. Some indications that it could go maybe closer to moderate, but again, we have to watch and see exactly how much this falls, or how much falls in the next couple of days. And this is going to be very sensitive to where the heaviest rainfall falls, that axis that Nick was showing. The further west that it is, and perhaps it's good that things have shifted maybe just a little bit to the east. The further west that it is, the more into the headwaters, closer to Raleigh, closer to US 1. Perhaps the better chances we have of that moderate to major flooding along the Neuse River, because all that water will have to flow downstream. If it happens to fall closer to Smithfield or Goldsboro, things could be better at Clayton and perhaps even Smithfield as well. So we're focusing in on these areas, and we'll certainly update over the next couple of days.
All right, sounds good. Thanks so much, Barrett. Appreciate that. And so there you have it. That's sort of been the biggest change since the last day or two that we've been doing these webinars, is the risk for river flooding. Lastly, I don't want to overlook the potential for tornadoes. Rain band tornadoes are possible as early as late tomorrow, and then again Tuesday morning, mainly from I-95 eastward. There's a better chance of these during the daylight hours than the nighttime hours. They can't be ruled out at night, but certainly daytime usually offers a better opportunity for these outer rain band tornadoes. And consequently, the Storm Prediction Center has eastern North Carolina, east of I-95, highlighted in a slight risk for severe weather, with marginal going back almost as far west as the US 1 corridor. You'll notice a little swath there for Monday from Greensboro west. That's associated with a cold front coming in from the west. So any severe storms, in the mountains and foothills and western Piedmont, that's totally due to something completely different. That's a cold frontal system. So interestingly, the fact that this tropical system is going to be, getting close to a cold front in its associated system is another reason why, for such a fast-moving tropical cyclone, why it's going to produce, potentially upwards of 4 or 5 inches of rain. It's the interaction of those two features that will help it produce more rain than such a fast-moving storm otherwise would. Okay, so with that, let's wrap up, and then I'll get to the questions here. Confidence is growing in this situation. Again, strongest winds along and east of I-95. Those winds will be spreading up through the area overnight, Monday night into Tuesday morning. Look for scattered to numerous down trees and power lines, and obviously subsequent structure damage if those trees fall on structures. 2 to 4 inches of rain, a swath of 4 to 6 inches along the I-95 corridor, with 2 to 4 elsewhere. And now we're expecting moderate flooding on the Neuse River at Clayton and Smithfield. It could touch low-end major at Smithfield, so we'll keep an eye on that. And then obviously isolated weak tornadoes as was highlighted. Again, timing. Late Monday, particularly for the tornadoes. Monday night and Tuesday morning for the gusty winds and rain and the worst rain. And the worst of the weather is expected overnight Monday night into Tuesday morning. So anyway, that's the way things are shaping up. Our next full briefing package will be 9:30 tomorrow morning or earlier by email. I'm talking the slides. We'll do another webinar actually at 9:30 tomorrow morning as well. So we'll do both slide update and a webinar at 9:30 tomorrow morning. And our evening shift and overnight shift may tweak the slides and send them out before then, but certainly no later than 9:30 will you get your next update. So thanks again for those who are joining us live, and for those who watch on YouTube after the fact. That's our briefing here.